Is climate change a hoax? No. Part 1. Let me help you understand. I'm going to try and do this quickly. I'm going to read really fast. We're going to go through some of the parts of the American Institute of Physics climate change timeline. Okay, here we go. 1859, John Tyndall demonstrates some gases block infrared radiation and notes that changes in the concentration of the gases could bring climate change. 1870 to 1910, Second Industrial Revolution introduces fertilizers and other chemicals. Electricity and public health further accelerate growth. 1920 to 1925, opening of the Texas and Persian Gulf oil fields inaugurates era of cheap energy. 1938, Guy Callender argues that CO2 greenhouse global warming is underway, reviving interest in the question. 1945, U.S. Office of Naval Research begins generous funding of many fields of science, some of which happen to be useful for understanding climate change. 1956, Gilbert Plas calculates that adding CO2 to the atmosphere will have a significant effect on the radiation balance. 1957, launch of Soviet Sputnik satellite. Cold War concerns support 1957 to 58 International Geophysical Year, bringing new funding and in coordination to studies. I think it's findings, but my handwriting is so terrible. Sorry about that. I knew that was going to happen. I had a feeling it was going to happen, but I just was like, it's not going to happen. Let's see. In 1916, Killing accurately measures CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere and detects an annual rise. Levels are 315 parts per million. Mean global temperature is 13.9 degrees Celsius. And I wanted to put that into perspective. I want to show you, tell you mean global temperature roughly from 1850 to 1890 it was 13.7 degrees Celsius. So we jumped up from 1890 to 1960, and we went up to 0.9 instead of 0.7. Okay, 1963 calculations suggest that feedback with water vapor could make the climate accurately sensitive to changes in CO2 level. First meeting of experts concerned with global warming warns that a rise in sea level is likely, with immense flooding of shorelines. Well, we see a lot of flooding right now, seeing as 70% of the Antarctic ice sheets are melted and the permafrost around the globe is melting, spewing out methane. Hey! No more hey, y'all! And making a mess! 1965, the Boulder, Colorado meeting on causes of climate change. Lorenz and others point out the chaotic nature of the climate system and the possibility of sudden shifts, the chaos theory. Well, in 1966, a year later, Emiliani's analysis of deep-sea cores and Broecker's analysis of ancient corals show that the timing of ice ages was set by small orbital shifts, suggesting that the climate system is sensitive to small changes. So it's not that it's a chaotic system we live in, it's a very sensitive system, perfected to function and sustain for us on its own, not able to sustain mass pollution. 1968. Studies suggest a possibility of collapse of Antarctic ice sheets, which would raise sea levels catastrophically. 1968, they suggested a possibility of the collapse of the Antarctic ice sheets. Like I just said, they're 70% gone and still melting. 1970 was the first Earth Day, environmental year of Earth Day being started. Environmental movement attains strong influence, spreads concern about global degradation. Also in that year, aerosols from human activity are shown to be increasing swiftly. Bryson claims they counteract global warming and may bring serious cooling. Well, he had something there, but he was not correct, and we'll get to that soon, okay? 1972, ice cores and other evidence show big climate shifts in the past, between relatively stable modes in the space of 1,000 years or so, especially around 11,000 years ago. 1974, serious droughts since 1972, increased concern about climate with cooling from aerosols suspected to be as likely as warming. Scientists doubt all the theories as journalists talk of new ice age. So there's a lot going on. People are getting distracted. 1975, warnings about environmental effects of airplanes lead to investigations of trace gases in the stratosphere and discovery of danger to the ozone layer. Manabe and collaborators produce complex but plausible computer models which show a temperature rise of a few degrees for doubled CO2. 1976, studies show that CFCs and also methane can make a serious contribution to greenhouse effect. Also in 1976, deforestation and other ecosystem changes are recognized as major factors in the future of the climate. 90% of the Amazon rainforest is gone, and we are suffering because of that. The ocean is acidifying and the coral reefs are dying. We are suffering because of that. We are seeing mega storms. We are seeing mega fires, mega droughts. We are in climate crisis. That was 1976. 1977, scientific opinion tends to converge on global warming, not cooling, as chief climate risk warming. Dang. Scientific opinion I can't remember what that. I can't read my handwriting. Scientific opinion points to. Scientific opinions converge on global warming, not cooling, as chief climate risk in next century. I don't know what that word is that I tried to write in there. Sorry about that. Excuse me. 1979, second oil energy crisis. Strengthened environmental movement. Encourages renewable energy sources, inhibits nuclear energy growth. Okay, so we had these nuclear meltdowns. 1983, reports from U.S. Academy of Services and Environmental Protection Agency spark conflict. Greenhouse warming becomes a factor in mainstream speculation over catastrophic climate change following a nuclear war, or a dinosaur killing asteroid strike. Promote realization of the atmosphere's fragility. 1985, the Launch Conference declares consensus among experts that some global warming seems inevitable. Calls on government to consider international agreements to restrict emissions. That is so fair. That is so fair. Yes, climate change happens. The environment changes. The climate does change. But there's a difference between polluting it and doing things that speed up that process and make it unnatural and unsafe. Okay, there's a very huge difference. I would much rather wait for it to play out naturally than to hit the fast forward button now and watch my children die. 1988, news media coverage of global warming leaps upward following record heat and droughts, plus statements by Hansen. Toronto conference calls for strict specific limits on greenhouse gas emissions. UK Prime Minister Thatcher is first major leader to call action. The UK, I mean, their leaders right now are boo-boo, but I will tell you what, the people of the UK with this environmental movement, with this animal liberation movement, hats off to the UK, and let's go USA. 1989, all right, here we go, we're getting closer and closer to our time here. Who was born in 1989 out there? Fossil fuel and other U.S. industries form Global Climate Coalition. The Global Climate Coalition? Are they our friends? No. The fossil fuel industries and the U.S. industries formed this Global Climate Coalition to tell politicians and the public that scientific consensus is too uncertain to justify. Well, let me tell you something about science that I've learned and listened to scientists speak. If there's a chance for something, no matter how slight the chance, you don't ever just disregard something and throw it out. And I'd say with all the other facts that we have here, this is climate denying, crisis denying, propaganda, and it's greed, it's money, and it's wrong. So we'll move on. Jump all the way up to 2000. Global Climate Coalition, the GCC, well, they dissolved as many corporations grapple with threat of warming. But oil lobby convinces U.S. administration to deny problem. See, money and government, that's the problem. That's why the banks, the oil, the government, they're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. But they're going to find out if we don't get this underway. They're going to find out, just like all the rest of us, what it cost. And they're going to watch their children die too. So at least there'll be some justice there. 2002, studies find surprisingly strong, quote, global dimming due to pollution has retarded arrival of greenhouse warming, but dimming is now decreasing. So that's what I was talking about a few moments ago with these aerosols getting up in the air. They were saying, oh, we could bring on an ice age because it's blocking out so much warmth and heat. Well, that was just stupid. And it's okay to explore that and, you know, prove it wrong, obviously, but to cling to that and to not embrace the current knowledge and the best knowledge is criminality. So our pollution worked to our advantage for a split few years there. All the crap we've been spewing up into the air kind of worked like a little umbrella for us. But then that umbrella got shredded, and now there you have it. 2005, the Kyoto Treaty goes into effect, signed by major industrial nations except U.S. That's a bummer. Hurricane Katrina and other major tropical storms spur debate over impact of global warming on storm intensity. We're talking about it. We're talking about it a little bit, but we're doing the same thing. 2008, climate scientists, although not public, this is huge. 2008, climate scientists, although not the public, recognized that even if all greenhouse gas emissions could be halted immediately, global warming will continue for millennia. 1,000 years. So, that sucks. And that's where we say, is it a reason to give up? Is it a reason to not, even if we have pushed ourselves to the brink, even far back then to the point where we can't stop? Is it worth giving up? Do we not try and soften the blow as best as we can for the future generations that did nothing? We have to do the ethical thing. I mean, I'm not even religious, but would Jesus give up? No. Would Buddha give up? No. Let's talk about real people. Would Mother Teresa give up? No. Would Gandhi give up? No. 2009, many experts warn that global warming is arriving at a faster and more dangerous pace than anticipated just a few years earlier. Excerpts from stolen emails of climate scientists fuel public skepticism. This is very important. We had people going in, desperate to not let the truth out because we're talking about billion dollar corporations, banks, businessmen. We are talking about elite wealth that does not want to give it up. So they got into emails and they manipulated things and they spat truth out like they do. Copenhagen Conference, again, in 2009 here. Copenhagen Conference fails to negotiate binding agreements. End of hopes of avoiding dangerous future in climate change. They said that was the end of hopes of avoiding dangerous future. The Copenhagen Conference. But we're not giving up. And we can't. 2012, controversial, quote, attribution studies find recent disastrous heat waves, droughts, extremes of precipitation and floods were made worse by global warming. 2013, an apparent pause or, quote, hiatus in global warming. Yeah, yay, that sounds good, but of the atmosphere. Since 1998 is explained, the world is still warming, as the next 3 record-breaking years would confirm. So in 2013, let me read this again, because this is a really crucial point here with understanding where climate denying comes from and the confusion. An apparent pause or hiatus, and that's in quotes, hiatus, in global warming of the atmosphere since 1998 is explained. So there was a pause from 1998 to 2013. Hey, all right, not doing so bad, huh? I think we're going to be okay. The world is still warming, as the next 3 record-breaking years would confirm. 2015, researchers find collapse of West Antarctic ice sheet is irreversible, will bring meters of sea level rise over future centuries. What do we see in Indonesia? What are we seeing around the world with this flooding? What do we see in the U.S. with the Midwest flooding? Okay, we are getting warmer, things are melting, and we are going to drown. Paris Agreement. In 2015, we had the Paris Agreement come out. Yeah, we were in, U.S. got involved in that. Trump pulled us out. What a great thing to do. That was smart after reading all this. I wonder if he read this. Paris Agreement. Nearly all nations pledged to set targets for their own greenhouse gas cuts and to report their progress. That was back in 2015, and we're nowhere near meeting those goals. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. These are the 5 warnings from the IPCC, 1990. The world has been warming. Future warming seems likely. 1995, detected signature of human-caused greenhouse gas effect. Warming is likely in coming century. 2001, states badly that global warming, unprecedented since the end of the last ice age, is very unlikely, with highly damaging future impacts and possible severe surprises. Effective end of debate among all but a few scientists. 2007, serious effects of warming evident. Cost of reducing emissions far less than damage they will cause. 2018, 12 years left until no return. That sounds like something that you would see on like a sci-fi movie where like people from the future find like an old remnant primitive world, and like the last log, you know, before the last records log, you know, that's something you would read when you find like an extinct species somewhere. This is the kind of shit that you read. They're gonna look their next species that comes along, if there's able to find us, if there's any remnants able to be found, if they can piece it together, kind of like we did the Egyptians. We're gonna have the dum-dum sticker right on our forehead. It's gonna be really embarrassing. For our culture, for our species. So embarrassing. From 1859 until current time, we have had warnings, science, and we have denied it. Congratulations. And now that we're on the brink of failure and extinction, well, it looks like the world's giving up. Looks like it, but we're not, because you're gonna join today, and I'm gonna be here tomorrow, and they're gonna be here tomorrow, and those ones over there are gonna be there tomorrow. We're gonna stay, and we're gonna fight, and we're gonna continue to be strong, and we're gonna continue to empower our children, and we're gonna tell them the truth. And if the time comes when we have to look at them and tell them we did all we can, then we can do that for real. That's all I have to say. Climate crisis is not a hoax. We are in grave danger, and the only thing more dangerous than climate crisis is climate crisis denial. Because without embracing and taking on the challenges we need to, we don't stand any chance whatsoever. So, something to think about. Go vegan.